Welcome to the Black to Business podcast. I am your host, Monique T. Marshall, and I'm excited to welcome you to episode number 8. So, this episode is particularly special because we're going to be talking about perfecting your pitch and ways to increase your visibility and impact others with your brand. I sought to get a special guest, Miss Kandia Johnson. She is the founder of Kandid Conversation, and she teaches 9-to-5ers and entrepreneurs how to get noticed by the right people. She's helped her clients launch global campaigns and events, get booked on TV shows, and featured in print and online publication. She also teaches corporate leaders and business professionals how to stand out from the crowd and how to communicate to win at life and in work. She's also been featured in Black Enterprise Magazine, Innovative Magazine, and Diversity Women Magazine. So I'm so excited about today's episode and our guests because we want you to win in your business. Just sit back and listen to episode number 8. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Who is Kandia Johnson?
Wow. Some days I'm still trying to figure that out. But for the most part, Kandia Johnson is a woman who decided about 4 or 5 years ago to carve her own path to success. I was living someone else's rules for success for so long. You know how you grow up living by your parents' rules and what they wanted you to do to be successful. So I was working in corporate America as a communications consultant, traveling around the US, and it just drove me crazy. I did not like it. I don't know. I guess to make a long story short, I don't think I fit in really. I love the work that I was doing. So clients like Johnson & Johnson, US Navy, Merck, these companies would hire my company to help them get the word out about a product, service, or initiative that they were working on. And so I would be tasked to the project to help them get the word out to their employees or even the public. So we did anything from like a marketing campaign and videos to even just like a newsletter campaign to generate awareness about whatever it was they were working on. So I did that, and I can say I enjoyed the work, but the travel, just the culture, I just didn't fit into that world. Mm-hmm. So I decided it wasn't like kind of like an overnight thing, y'all, but I knew it was coming. And then one day I just was like, you know what, this is it. So I quit my job. I was making 6 figures. Wow. And I decided I thought I was just going to, contract short term on my own. But then I wound up just building a business around teaching 9-to-5ers and entrepreneurs how to become recognized leaders in the workplace and influential voices within their own industries.
Definitely. So you gotta back it up a little bit. So when you graduated from college, like what was your first job then? And then how did you get to that place where you were having those, working with those clients to that job that you had before until now?
So wow. So it's so funny how life works. My first job, I love this question. My first job out of college was working at Lord & Taylor at Quaker Bridge Mall in New Jersey. I was working at the jewelry counter, and I couldn't find work when I graduated from college. And of course, I went back home to my mom, but I couldn't find work, and I just couldn't take sitting around and not doing anything. So we went to the mall one day, and I was like, I'm gonna walk in here and get me a job, and I got it. So I did that for I think I did it for like 7-8 months before I got my real job as a PR, public relations, and marketing coordinator. Mm-hmm. And I tried to use that same mindset that I had then, like do what you have to do until you could do what you want to do, because I just couldn't take sitting around and not having no money in my pocket, not doing anything. So I really, truly believe that the universe responds to action. And so taking that job, I did it for 7 months, and then the PR marketing and coordinator job came for BJ's Wholesale Club. And I was doing community awareness events. I was doing marketing promotions for products like Tide, Tide, the detergent. Mm-hmm. So marketing promos and things of that sort. I did a lot of adopt the school programs and community awareness events, anything that could put the company in a positive light, specifically within that community, I was responsible for. And then any kind of like marketing and promotions. So I did that. The funny thing is I left that arena for quite some time because I wasn't making enough cash. I left and decided to get a state job in social services, which I absolutely, I don't regret parts of my life because during that time I met some of my best friends, in
Right.
life, but, it just wasn't the job for me. But however, looking back, I wound up getting a training position, right? Where I would go out to different agencies in New Jersey and train people just like on the state regs and things of that
Mm-hmm.
sort. And it's funny that I'm doing workshops now. So in hindsight, it prepared me
Right.
for a piece of my business right now because I do in-person workshops and then I do online classes as well. So it prepared me in that moment. So a roundabout way, I guess I'm back where I belong, but the journey was worth it.
Definitely. I do see the traveling and things like that. We have to get into that
Yeah.
because Ms. Johnson is international. So you talked about, just quitting and how did
Mhm.
you prepare for that? And then also what was that moment like when you decided that it was time to, take that leap?
Okay, so here's the thing. I was unhappy for quite some time. I just want to be very transparent about that. It sounds a lot sexy to be like, "Oh, I just quit,"
Mm-hmm.
but essentially, it was a lot involved in that. Number one, I was unhappy for a very long time, so I just started to do things. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I did start to do things to prepare. Like I had a house, I had a car note, I had all of these things, and so I decided to give up my house, but
Wow.
I didn't give it up at that moment. I was
Mm-hmm.
just like mentally packing. Like I think it was just kind of like a mental thing, right? And then I paid my car note up for a couple of months. So I would be paying off bills and paying my car note up. I think I paid my car note like 6, 7, 9 months in advance or something like that at one point. But that moment when I decided to quit, actually, I was on a project in Detroit and the client said that they needed to cut back on the budget. And so they were paying for me to have a hotel sometimes, but then corporate apartments. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
in order to cut back on the budget, you have to get a roommate. That's when like that light bulb went off like, oh no, I'm past roommate. Okay. Way past roommate days and ages. And that just made me furious. At the same time, I was going on, African safari. And I remember, I said, okay, I'm going on a safari or whatever. But so we went on safari and we were playing this game. It was a mother-daughter safari. I had my mom, my sister, my mom had
Mm-hmm.
her best friend and her friend. And it was a game of truths. Don't ask me why we decided to play truths in the middle of safari, but that's what we were doing. And
Wow.
that's when I finally admitted to like my family that I was incredibly unhappy and I couldn't take it anymore. And that pushing me to get a roommate, I just felt like that was a non-negotiable for me. Like you could tell me when to go to lunch, you could tell me when I have to be to work, but
Right.
you can't tell me how to live my personal life. And so I always think now, especially interviewing so many entrepreneurs who or change makers who just decide to go a new direction in life, you just reach a point when you're sick of your own BS, right? Where you're like, okay, wait a minute. You know what? You've been sitting around unhappy for this long. Enough is enough. So that, I made a decision. I came back. I gave them 3 weeks notice and, everybody, like, they were like, did you meet an African friend? That was the thing. I was like, no, that didn't happen.
Would have liked to.
Right, right. And so, at that point, I really had to move in with my mom then. And my plan though was just to really, uh, reach out to staffing companies and do short term kind of consulting work, the same sort of projects. And so I did that, for a while. And then one day I get a call from a person that I interviewed with and he's like, are you doing, will you consult for me? I have like a big major project. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then that was like my out because it was with Johnson and Johnson. So that was like my first client on my own. And, that's like that's the end, not really the end of the story. It's kind of like the beginning, but that was my
Right.
world, my leap, my official leap into the entrepreneurship realm.
And looking back, would you have done anything differently?
Um, that question annoys me because it's almost as if you have regrets. And I really try not to have regrets because I feel like
Right.
everything is, I always say this, failure is feedback for the come up, right? So,
Mhm.
um, I guess I could have planned better. Let me say this. So making the type of money that I was making, I certainly could have hired somebody to to create, build my website.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could have definitely spent a lot more time and invested in getting my foundation straight so that by the
Right.
time when I quit, I honestly did not have any of that in place. So I could have definitely done a much better job at investing in things like, a website, all of these processes and tools that you absolutely need. Yes, you can start a business for little or nothing, but you have to do some investing, some
Right.
minor investing. And so I could have done definitely a better job at investing in things like a website, different business applications and stuff. That was really a hardship for me to make the investment, but I had to do it.
Definitely. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier today and they were
Mhm.
saying a similar thing. Like, you have to invest, to also have a return on that investment,
Right,
planning for that. So definitely a great point.
right.
And one of the things you mentioned is like, at one point you felt like you were living for other people.
Hmm.
So during your journey, was it important for you at any time to, make sure you surrounded yourself with certain people, or, how was that transition there?
Yeah, so this was one of the things that I did a piss poor job at. And it's crazy that it's one of my greatest strengths right now. So when I was working for my employer, I was so busy trying to fit in and I was so busy trying to be accepted that I
Hmm.
only networked within the company, right? I didn't go to outside events. I didn't do those things. I mean, really, I didn't have the time because I was traveling Sunday through Thursday or Monday through Thursday. But I didn't do a job at developing my network. So when I left, I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I
Right.
didn't know anyone who had their own business or who had just made such a big uh, career change. So I had to be very intentional. I hated social media. That's another thing. Look, you're probably like, this girl is a Debbie Downer. No, I did. I hate it. I'm like, Twitter, what's that? I got a lot to say. How am I going to say that in 145 characters, whatever it is? But I started like lovingly stalking Twitter. And I was like, I think this is a place that I need to be. So I have to teach myself how to use it.
Right.
Twitter, I was on LinkedIn. I was visible, but not really visible because I was so used to when I was working with these clients, putting the client first and making sure they were at the forefront, that I didn't do a good job at putting myself at the forefront. And I think it's a lot of people struggle with that. So I had to be intentional at not only building relationships online, but also going out of my way to go to events and meet people, and more so add value to the
Right.
relationship. Just really trying to figure out. I always tell people just ask people questions about themselves to start building that relationship, and then figure out either a need, or that you could fill for them, or some advice, or even just make a connection for them. So I always go in with that mindset, and I still use that mindset today. And I think that that's why it's been one of my greatest strengths to just automatically start connecting people with other people. Because I know, it definitely adds to, your journey as an
Hmm.
entrepreneur. Look, someone said to me a couple of days ago, it takes a village to raise an entrepreneur. And it's so very true. I don't know what I would do without, my core group of members. I call them, excuse my French, my members of my badassery club. That's what I call them. I don't know what I would do without them. You definitely need the support from people to go along in your journey.
Definitely. And one of the things I remember when I saw you on the panel, just, perfecting the pitch and getting your pitch out there and branding. I was like, I love her because one of the things I admire is your relatability and how you were
Oh,
really giving advice on like how can you really have your brand stick out. Because
right.
I can see like based on the work you've done, you get a lot of people reach out to you. So it was great that one thing I do know you focus on is, making sure that people are getting that media attention that they need.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so any advice like about like how you see that entrepreneurs when they're trying to get their brand noticed, like when it comes
Hmm.
to the pitch, like what are those key tips that you would give?
Okay, so my number one thing I would say is sell a solution, not the product or service.
Mm.
So many entrepreneurs, they focus on, oh, I have this great new product, I have this great new service, and this is the thing, people don't want to be sold to. Like, we don't. We're all selfish in a sense. People want to know, what can you do for me? Like,
Right.
how can you solve my problems? So even when you are introducing yourself at an event, or you are reaching out to a journalist, or even you're looking for investor support, get in the habit of talking about the problem you solve, or at least the impact that you've made within a specific community. So that's the first thing. The second thing, especially when it comes to the online space right now, I tell people to follow the 4 Ps when it comes to having your brand or your business stand out. Really focus on perspective, process, personality, and patience, most of all, because it doesn't happen overnight, right? Perspective is, what are your viewpoints, or your perspectives about or your point of view about what's going on in the industry, about the hot topics in your industry. What are the things that people get wrong? What are the ways, that you think you should solve a problem and everybody else is solving it one way? What's your kind of like standout factor? That's your perspective. Your process is now, especially nowadays, we are so consumed with behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's through Instagram stories, Facebook, Twitter, people want to be taking along on your journey. If you can show them that process, like if you are saying you're a handbag designer and you focus on luxury handbags, take people along on that journey to see the bag being made, right? Take them
Good.
along on that journey and start talking about the leather is from a certain little village in Italy. I don't know, but I'm saying that to say that we are obsessed with the process now. Everyone is obsessed with the process. You can no longer just sell people a product, because people want to know you behind the scenes, right? So that's process. Personality is key, because nobody likes a robot. Nobody wants to buy from a robot anymore. So it's really, really important that, your brand or business have some sort of personality. So like you said earlier, when you heard me speak, it was like I was relatable. I'm just Kandia, okay? I'm probably going to drop a couple of F-bombs sometimes. I'm going to apologize. I don't know. I try to be good sometimes, but it's easier to be me, right?
Mm.
And, you will never run out of content if you are yourself. Period. Like, I just bring Kandia to it all. So, those 3 Ps is really important: perspective, process, and personality. But that 4th P is to be patient, right? Because it's not, I know it's hard. Social media shows you the microwave version. But it's really a long haul. It takes a lot of patience, and kind of tweaking it to get it right before you can reach that level of success that you desire.
Definitely. And one of the things you did mention is, get out there, get in people's faces.
Right.
Do you feel like at this time, entrepreneurs and business owners can afford to be behind scenes?
Oh God. So it's so funny. I had someone reach out to me the other day. They had a client that wanted to be behind the scenes. I don't think it's really safe anymore to do that, because now more than ever, people buy into people, right?
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, you could just put up a picture of a Coke can and people would go crazy. Now you have to show people with that bottle of Coke or can of Coca-Cola, whatever it is. People really buy into the leader before they buy into the vision sometimes, unless you're a well-known brand. But a lot of the times when you look at influencers right now, and this is why influencer marketing is it's driving everything now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because people buy into people first before they buy into the product or service. So, if you're challenged with that, and I talked to a young lady who called me about that before. She wanted to be behind the scenes. I said, well, she needs to put someone else in front of the scenes, whether it's her employees or it's, it can be, the community that you work within. Maybe you want to spotlight that specific community or spotlight your employees. But nowadays, people really buy into people before they kind of buy into, that helps them buy into whatever they sell. It's kind of like the Oprah effect.
Right. Okay. And definitely, like, I think a thing too is, you have some background in PR and things like that. So what about, those companies who are, because most of our audience is a small business owners, entrepreneurs, they don't necessarily have that PR person to reach out for them. So what are some ways that they can, gain that media attention for their business, and stand out for people like you to pay attention to their emails or, pick up their story?
Right. This is the beauty of the situation that we're in right now. Everybody has access. You have access to President Obama, if you think about it, on Twitter, right? You have access to Oprah on Instagram. Like, everyone has access to everyone. So that's one thing. Another thing is, when it comes to entrepreneurs, stay ready. Put yourself in a position to be found. Right now, what's happening, especially whether it's media or even if it's music producers or even TV producers, they are spending their time on YouTube, on Pinterest, on Instagram, on Twitter, and they're looking for the next person for a TV segment. They're looking, that's how I think Justin Bieber was found on YouTube, right?
Really?
So put yourself in a position to win, right? And you do that by living your brand or your business. Again, taking people behind the scenes of your business. Also, use these mediums to build relationships. Twitter is my playground. So I have a lot of relationships with people that I met on Twitter, and we're pretty friendly now. Like, they have my number, right? They text me now, even publicists, like, hey, I got a story idea I want to write. Like, we've had drinks, like and that relationship started from Twitter, and it starts with something simple. Like, if you say good morning, say good morning back. Like, you share an article, comment on a journalist article, right? Build that relationship slowly, share their articles, or just jump into a conversation that they're having. I actually love Twitter to, I think people are let loose on Twitter, right? LinkedIn, people are stuffy. They are, like, people are kind of stuffed up and, they're packaging themselves a certain way. But usually on Twitter and Instagram, sometimes on Facebook as well, their behavior is different. So you have to respect the platform, but it's a perfect opportunity for people wanting to build relationships with influencers or media people. A guy tweeted today that Mark Cuban agreed to talk to his entrepreneurial group for 15 minutes. He only has I think he had about 3,000 followers or something on Facebook, but he was like, holy effing, you know what? Mark Cuban is going to speak, but he positioned himself for that moment. Right. And then he was bold enough to just reach out, and invite him, and he took him up on his offer. And so I'm always encouraging people, position and package yourself so that you're ready for that moment. Build relationships. You could be sitting at home drinking a beer or sipping on wine, and build relationships with journalists from Black Enterprise or Essence Magazine. Another thing I would say too is, you want to make sure that you know the audience of the publication you're pitching, right? If you want to build a relationship with a certain journalist, a lot of the times what you can do is, if you Google Essence Magazine Media Kit or Black Enterprise Media Kit, that information is right online. You could get their whole editorial calendar. You could get, the editors that are assigned to certain beats. You can get all of that information and then go follow those people on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, kind of find out where they hang out at and start to really follow what they're doing and build the relationship from that point.
Definitely. Shoot your shot. So you don't mind the reaching out via Twitter?
No, I'm all for that. Especially, I don't know. I don't have a stick up my what for that. Like, I'm all for that. Yeah. I like genuine relationships. So a lot of the times, like I said, I socialize with a lot of people on Twitter, and then they'll send me a DM and they'll say, Kandia, what? Another thing I tell people, ask first, pitch second. So if you build a relationship, you're kind of friendly and you're encouraging each other or commenting on there. A lot of the times people will just reach out to me and say, Kandia, what types of stories do you like to write about at Black Enterprise? Or what are you looking for? And we'll go back and forth and I'll tell them. And I'm probably more apt to help because it just comes from a really, really good, genuine place. And I could see that we are in, kind of like the relationship building space, and I don't mind. I'm all for it. People have hit me up on DM and Instagram, specifically Instagram and Twitter. People hit me up all the time. I truly don't mind. I really don't.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to slide in the DMs,
No,
guys.
I don't mind at all.
You mentioned two good points. One is I think, and guilty myself, is the thought of not psyching yourself out, because I remember at the event, one of the points you all mentioned was that a lot of times these publications are covering the same people, or you always see the same people being covered, and they're looking to be the first person to cover someone new.
Right.
So that's even another reason why it's more important to, just put yourself out there.
Right. And you just never know. A young woman about 2 weeks ago, she sent me a message on LinkedIn, and she was like, I would love to talk to you, or at least tell me what I need to do. And I was like, okay, let's talk. And she was like, now? I was like, yeah. Like, you just never, you just never know. So, and I'm kind of, well, I don't know. I kind of live that way. Like, you just never know. Like, Oprah could hit you up. Like, you just never know. You have to kind of adopt that mindset. And right now, yes, I feel like everyone is kind of guilty of, especially when it comes to media, like pushing the same people. So for me, I have a sweet spot for people in underrepresented career fields like culinary and tech. So I'm always looking. I'm not influenced by numbers or anything, where some people would be like, oh, they only got 500 followers. I don't care anything about that, right? I care about your impact. I care about, if you are solving a problem for a particular audience and it's relatable for me. And I also care about that you're consistent and kind of packaged and ready. But I don't let numbers influence my decision on whether or not I'm going to cover someone or work with them.
Definitely. So how would you suggest someone, when it's just them, starting their business, how do you suggest they gain like that social proof?
Okay. I would tell them definitely you have to know your audience, right? Definitely get your mindset and kind of a test. Everything is a test, right? And so once you know your audience, let's say you want to start a transportation company, right? For the elderly. What I would do to gain my social proof, honestly, is probably reach out to local senior care centers or anybody that services kind of the elderly population, and see if I could do some sort of trial. Maybe one Saturday out of the month, I do kind of like a transportation service with that specific agency. Build my credibility up in quality and service, and just providing like an amazing experience for that population. You'll have a testimonial that comes out of that. That's social proof, right? Because people start to comment on the wonderful job that you've done for the community, that sort of center. So sometimes it's just simply starting locally with what you have, and showing the fact that you can do the job, and then having those people comment on that. That's just something that simple that you can do, whether it's free, paid, or just at a discount. I'll give you an example. Even for me, I have master classes now, but I started when I first did them online. I charged at a really, really low rate, right? Because I knew that I was new to the online space. I really wanted to make sure that I was meeting people's needs and things of that sort. So once I became confident, and I was able to get testimonials, especially from, working with people and they're in a different country, that could be a challenge. I knew like, okay, I'm taking this rate up like 60%, right? So I always look at things, and I tell entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs, to always be in beta mode, always be in test mode. You test. Someone once told me, launch it, broke, fix it live. Because sometimes we get so tied to perfection that we never put anything out. And if you change your mindset to start thinking that everything is in test mode, even something small, you could buy a Facebook ad. Like if you have a website, buy a Facebook ad. You could buy a Facebook ad for $5 to $10 and just get people signing up for your idea, for your concept, to see if people are interested in it, right? That's another way to gauge interest, is to kind of buy like a cheap affordable Facebook ad. You can run a Facebook ad for 7, 10 days, 30 days, $5, $10, $100, just to gauge the interest in your product or service, or just to simply test the market. You know, if you already have like an audience, you could just use like Twitter polls, to ask people their opinions about what they really need. Right. So I always tell people, like, getting that test mode, don't let the fact that you are unclear stop you in your tracks. Figure out the best way to test your idea and keep it moving and keep improving upon it. Your business is not going to be the same business 5 years from now. It's just not. You're going to change. You're going to pivot. You're going to have some failure. But hey, y'all, remember, failure is feedback for the come up. You got to keep it pushing.
Yes. Definitely. And you mentioned the class, your master class. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about, what do you do in the visibility master class? Like, what's that about?
Sure. So my master class is for 9-to-5ers and entrepreneurs who are ready to make themselves more marketable for speaking engagements, media attention, and even potential clients. So a lot of the people on my master class who are incredibly dope people. I have a data scientist. I have a writer. I have a woman who has her own marketing company, but she specializes in eco-friendly marketing and branding. And so these people want to position, they want to take their brands, their businesses to the next level, attracting clients, media attention, speaking engagements, that sort of thing. And so it's a 6-week live class. And it's about 1.5 hours. We do a video conference. And they walk away from the class with a 90 ways and 90 days strategic roadmap. Like, it includes everything on how to create content to attract your audience. It includes ways to market yourself, and really build a community around your values, and your beliefs, and kind of like what you're selling. So one of the things that we often do as new entrepreneurs is we try to wing it. Right. We wing social media. We wing our marketing. And then you reach a point when you're burned out and you're overwhelmed. Like, social media, if you don't know the right processes and systems, could be overwhelming. It's overwhelming for most. It's overwhelming for me sometimes. So in the masterclass, we create 90 days, a 90-day plan to automate, to let your business run in its sleep, to market your business basically in your sleep. Now, that doesn't mean you're still not engaging, but at least you can operate the business and let the marketing piece kind of run itself, whether that's through Facebook ads or anything like that. So we do a lot of planning, forward thinking, so you can kind of get out of your own way and also run the business while marketing it. And then something else that's cool, I am having certain members of my network come in and do mastermind sessions, at least once out of that 6 weeks. We also have an exclusive Facebook Live, a Facebook group. And so throughout the week, we're engaging. I also, although it's a group format, there are 2 one-on-one sessions. So that way you could feel like, what you're getting out of it is customized. Because I think for me, with online classes, it's kind of like, that's not my real thing. I would rather work one-on-one with people, because I still think you could teach, principles, but people need personalized and customized attention. And I give that in the masterclass through the one-on-one sessions.
Well, that sounds like a lot of great things that you're offering. Like, how can people become a part? Is it something that starts every so often and they jump in?
Yeah, so I have one starting September 6th, which is next week. I'm going to do another one in November. And then on top of that, I'm going to start doing just a monthly webinar. So it's crazy. I did this article on how to do the don'ts of pitching your audience, and a couple of people reached out to me. So I'm going to do like a one-off for that. I'm going to do a webinar on that topic, like how to pitch the media and get your business featured. So I'm going to do those up until probably December, to the end of the year.
Definitely. And guys, I will say, I am a big fan of Kandid's page, her website. Like, there are certain websites I go to for certain things, and I've also learned to not have like a million. It's like some key people that I'm like, okay, they have experience, let me go to this page. And I remember when meeting you, I was like, I love this website. You can definitely tell it's so detailed, like, and it shows that you have that experience. So if you haven't, I'm going to plug your
Oh, thank you,
website.
thank you,
Go
thank you. I
visit.
appreciate that.
Yes, I've learned some things, even as far as like the pitching, the social media aspect of it. So definitely keep it with the quality. So I don't doubt that the class is even just more amazing.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
Of course, of course. And one of the things you mentioned too is like the social media aspect. How, how big of a impact do you think, social media makes on businesses? Because, do you feel like there is a way that people focus too much on it and not so much as connecting? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that you definitely, in my opinion, you need it. However, I do feel like that the in-person networking is key. Like for me with the workshops. So the workshops really came because I cold called someone. Like I picked up the phone and cold called a list of businesses.
Wow.
I was in a bad state at that point, and that's when you have to get in hustle mode. So I'm laughing now, but it didn't feel funny then. So when it comes to my in-person workshops, that started because I picked up the phone and I called someone. That didn't start because of social media. And even now, and looking at all the businesses that I've done, especially particularly in New Jersey, that has came from word of mouth and one-on-one relationship building. So although social media is necessary, I feel like social media is like your new resume. That's just what it is. Like people are going to Google you, right? Before they even ask for your resume, they're going to Google you. So you definitely need it. But I feel like people are getting away from the real work and the real relationship building now. And so you should definitely make the networking a part of your plan, like the in-person kind of building relationship things. Listen, I tell people all the time, relationships will take you places that money can't. So at the same time that I'm writing my things to do list, although, I may have like, oh, I have to do this worksheet and I have to, do this press release and all those other things. I have on Fridays, I like to call it follow-up Fridays, where I'm reaching out to somebody in my network and just like, hey girl, or hey, what's going on? How you doing? You doing good? Oh, let me try to connect you with this person. Like I have that as a constant to-do list to pick up the phone, or I'm in Virginia now. I'm going to New York next week. I have lunch dates with people like that. One-on-one, you cannot replace that.
Right. So I know the social media, it's exhausting sometimes, from experience. And also I know connecting with people is, that's in itself is just as important. So my question to you is, how are you doing it all? Like how's a team and things like that fit into place?
So this is the whole thing. I said earlier, winging it is not a strategy. So I literally, Sundays are my days to sit down and automate my content for sometimes I do just a month, right? So Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are my playgrounds. Instagram doesn't pay my bills though, right? So they don't send me any money. But Facebook and Twitter, I convert people from those platforms. And so I market probably more heavily, especially with Twitter. I know this because of Google Analytics, right? So Google Analytics tracks, what social media sites are being driven to my site and where I'm converting and things of that sort. So I sit down and I plan content for the whole, sometimes one time I did it for 3 months. I had an assistant at that point though. And they would just, schedule using Hootsuite. They would, Hootsuite.com. They would schedule my content, to push, to promote itself. Even if I had like a masterclass or I had an event that was scheduled in to push itself. I also, to create like really good, stunning graphics on the fly, I highly recommend canva.com, canva.com. Word Swag is another one. So I use my Sundays to really create all that content. Something that I do throughout the week. I use there's a audio to text feature on my phone. I use that to do my blog posts. And I just literally talk into it. Even if I'm driving, I just talk into it and it transcribes it to text. And then I email it to myself. and it's easy for me to, format it. If I have an assistant at that time, it depends on the project that I'm working with and things of that sort. But I will send it to her to format and then schedule it on my blog. So I would say, definitely you have to be strategic. You have to. So like, say if you're in the technology industry, right? And we're approaching September. I think like social media week and all those things are coming up. You would want to plan your outreach efforts or your networking efforts around social media week, right? If you are, let's say, a programmer, or maybe you are into digital marketing or something like that. So you have to learn how to be very forward thinking. I tell people, look 3 months ahead. If you can do 6 months, that's even better. And plan your content, plan your marketing promotions, even look at certain events that you want to be involved in. Because even, something like Twitter, right, where hashtags trend around certain events like social media week and things of that sort, you want to be, on the scene, or at least in the space to start sharing your perspectives and things of that sort. So be very forward thinking. Sit down for a day, whatever your day is, look at the calendar, see what the trends are in your industry, plan around holidays and events. And use these tools like, Hootsuite, your audio to text feature, canva.com, and create your content and plan that out, man. Stop winging it, because that typically is the reason why we're so burned out, because we're just winging it on the fly day by day by day.
Definitely. And speaking of burned out, I like that you mentioned like planning and, in the sense, creating these systems so that it becomes easier. I guess I asked the question for you, and it's an overall question, like, do you feel that people will get to the point if, they're planning and things like that, it gets easier? Because I know that entrepreneurship is hard. But at that point, when you're preparing, does it feel like it gets easier?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially once, even things like going back and forth in email, which I absolutely hate. So, especially because, with my master classes, and then sometimes I have one-on-one sessions. So I have a lot of back and forth. I used to have a lot of back and forth in emails. That takes a lot of time. Now I use Calendly.com. And what it is it's a scheduling app. And so whenever someone says, oh, you got 30 minutes to meet, or, oh, I need to schedule a session, I just send them a link and they'll see what my availability is over the next 2 weeks and schedule it. Having those systems in place, it does make it incredibly easy, because, when people reach out to you, you can just, boom, send them a link. So it's really, I know it's hard sometimes, especially as a new entrepreneur. You want to hit the ground running and start selling products or services, but you have to, believe me, learn from me, y'all. You have to get those, your foundation straight. You have to get those processes and have an understanding of the tools that are out there to help you. A lot of the times when entrepreneurs come to me, they're like, social media is overwhelming. I don't have time for it. Not having time for social media is like throwing money in the air. Like, who does that? Right? So you have to, it's not about having the time. It's about making the time, right? For me, when people say I don't have the time, that means you're really saying it's not a priority, right? So I always tell people, when you say I don't have the time, end the sentence with, it's just not a priority, right? Because so you have to learn how to make the time, understand the processes and the tools and the systems that are available to you. Even if you have to hire someone to do it, you need to understand that needs to be done.
Definitely. And how did you decide, what to outsource? Like, what kind of things are you can think of your outsourcing
I would say the routine things that just have to get done, right? So I know social media is definitely the biggest beast. Also I do, so although I'm doing online masterclasses, there is an email sequence that has to go out for every class, right? That's routine stuff. The emails really don't change. They may change a bit, like the dates or something like that. That's something you could have someone pick up. Also, I have print needs for my in-person workshop. So sometimes, although those things sound really, really simple, those things still can take up a lot of time, because you may have a PowerPoint deck that needs to be updated with a date or something like that. I don't know. You can outsource that to a VA to do. Something else, let me see. Even so, that social media, That's updating some of your materials. That's a big one. Even stuff like expenses, I would say. So, okay, this is another thing I want y'all to learn from me, especially y'all entrepreneurs. Get right with the IRS, okay? Get y'all mind right with the IRS. Make sure you
Talk about it.
make sure you hire somebody who can help you understand what's deductible, what's not deductible, who can, one of the biggest lessons I've learned that you could actually do quarterly taxes. You don't have to wait till the end of the year. So for me, I was really doing a horrible job at that. Now I use Wave as my invoicing system. And so I'm much better. For me, I'm much better at looking at a short-term date than a long-term date because I'll just keep pulling stuff off. Like, it's not until the end of the year. But if you tell me I only got like 3 months, that kind of like lights the fire. Like, oh, let me get my stuff right. Right. So you have to get to know yourself. But things like that, like knowing, how you should be keeping your expenses and tracking your expenses, invoices, things of that sort, get that understanding, master that in the very beginning. It's a headache at first and, of course, as you go through it, but it does make it a lot easier.
Right, definitely. And I think that's the thing that most first-time entrepreneurs miss. We don't think about at first. It's like the accounting part of it, the legal part of it. So sometimes it's like those tough lessons that we have to learn, but it's important to, talk about those things up front and setting
right. And
up.
That really, a lot of that, of course, came through some tough lessons learned, but then my network was able to give me, share resources on how to make my life, 100 times easier, by getting on the ball with these different. Even one of my friends today posted something about an accountant that she just absolutely loved and that he works out of state. And I reached out to her because I trust her and she gave me his name and I'm going to reach out to him so we can have a discussion. So a lot of the tools and the apps and kind of like the quick tips and different people to help me, that's come from, knowing people who are in the same line of business that I'm in, or at least they're entrepreneurs or change makers that have some other stuff going on.
Definitely. Yes. Referrals. Yes. So I'm that individual. I've met the lovely Miss Kandia Johnson. I have been through this visibility masterclass. I feel like I could take over the world. I'm no longer behind the scenes. And people are coming to me asking for my business. Pay me what you owe me. How am I deciding how much to charge?
That is such a great question that comes up all the time. And I have to say, ladies, we have to do better. And I have to say that including myself, because one of the things that I've learned is that women, in my experience, have more of a challenge with asking for what we are worth. So here's the thing. Number one, it starts with being prepared and it starts with understanding your market. Right. And then it also starts with understanding all that goes into producing your product or service. So a lot of the times we'll just look at the fact, like if you are in digital marketing, you'll just look at the fact, okay, maybe you help people with social media. Okay, I'm just writing tweets all day. That's not a big deal. No, you're using electricity. You have internet. And you also probably have some sort of, automation system or something, that you're paying for. So that must be factored in. And a lot of the times we leave that out of the process. We factor in the rate that we had at the job, right? So if your job was paying you $35 an hour to do that, you kind of come out like, oh, okay, pay me $35 an hour. But no, now you're using your own overhead. Right? You're using some of those things. So you have to calculate that in. And I always say too, I price things based on value as well. So after you get over, okay, this is all of my overhead that needs to be included in. What is the experience that you are providing? That's the value. So for me, my clients always get a lot of the one-on-one attention, especially in the visibility game where a lot of people focus on, just kind of like the online courses. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I am obsessed with customization and personalization. So my former clients and even my clients will tell you now that when it comes to customizing and spending one-on-one time, that's what they really value from me. So I price on value. And the second thing is just really understand the market. So yes, you can have an idea of what you want to charge for, but then you have to understand your market. Number one, who are your customers? And, what are their demographics in terms of, their salary and what they can afford. And then number two, kind of, I don't recommend that you become obsessed with what your competitors are doing, but understand what rates they're charging as well. And how, number one, how you fit into that scenario, but also how you can also differentiate yourself. So if you want to charge, of course, more, what's the why factor there? Why would someone invest in you versus the other person?
Definitely. So great points. Yes. So in all of this, how do you manage, distractions and
Oh,
staying
I love this
focused?
question.
I could say
Listen, I could be such a ruthless beast sometimes. Sometimes I'm not. No, let me stop lying. So I have some rules, okay? Now, the first rule is most days I don't schedule meetings until 1:30 p.m. Now, I've had to be a little lenient on that because my masterclass people are in Nairobi, Kenya. So we have our sessions at 12:30 midday because they're like 6 hours. I think they're 6 or 7 hours ahead of us. So I've relaxed that rule a bit, but only because they're in a different time zone. My theory is this. When I put people on my early calendar for a meeting, my focus becomes their focus, and then I lose, traction on what I need to do for the day. So most days I don't take meetings till 1:30. I have Facebook feed blocker on my desktop. So it kind of takes the whole feed off of, you can't see anyone else's feed. Cause you know how you go on Facebook and then you fall in love with Johnny's, daughter's prom pictures, and then such and such got engaged, and then, something happened. Right. Trump done said something crazy. I don't know. Then people going back. So feed blocker kind of takes all of that away. You can't see anyone's feed. All you can do is post what you have to post and keep it moving. At times I also take social media apps off of my phone, especially Instagram, because I love Instagram and I could fall down a rabbit hole there. What's something else that I do? Oh, 20-minute meetings. I'm a firm believer in 20-minute meetings. See, when you give people an hour, they're going to ramble on. You give people 20 minutes, they're like, okay, I only have 20 minutes. I have to make it count. And so they're going to figure out.
Not 30?
20 minutes. And the thing is, like, listen, we can go over, right? Between you and me and the people, right? We can go over. But generally, when you give people the option of a 20-minute meeting, they come to the table ready because they're like, oh, okay, we only got 20 minutes. When you typically give someone an hour, especially if it's in person, they want to go out to eat, then that turns into 3 hours and this, that, and the third. I tell people, okay, let's have a 20-minute meeting and let's figure it out. If it runs over because, of course, it's a priority, then it's okay. But I noticed, especially from my corporate days, that we were so accustomed to having 1-hour meetings that were a complete waste of time. Waste of time. And so, they were complete. It's like meetings about meetings and nothing is getting done. So, even when I worked in corporate, it was something that I did. And my former manager, in fact, taught me to have standing meetings where everyone just stands up, right? And just kind of, okay, this is what it is, and keep it moving. So I try to be a really, really stickler at, managing my time that way. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but as an entrepreneur, like, time is your greatest asset. And if you don't get a handle on that, you are definitely, number one, going to burn yourself out. And then number two, you're going to take yourself out of business. Right. So that's why I always tell people, like, it's not about having the time. It's about making the time. And you have to look at success can be found in your daily routine, period. If you can't look at your daily routine and figure out what it is you're doing wrong, you're going to go down a rabbit hole and fail. That's where you need to look at. It's not about sitting down, writing some long laundry list of, things to do list. It's looking at what you do daily and how you can fit in your biggest priorities in that day.
Definitely. Success can be found in your daily routine. Yes,
John Maxwell said that. Maxwell, one of those. Yes.
Drops the mic. So you must say no a lot.
I must say what?
How does that feel? No, a lot.
Do I? I guess I do, huh? I guess I do. Or this is the thing. I don't say no. I will ask people what their turnaround time is. So a lot of the times people will say, oh, Kandia, I have a question, and they'll act like it's something urgent, but I'll say, what's their turnaround time? Oh, well, maybe in 2 weeks. Okay, hit me up in 2 weeks. Right. So that's generally my response. When people ask me to do something, I ask them what their turnaround time is. If it's something urgent, I may say, okay, I only have like a 10-minute window, or I'll just tell them to send it to me, in an email. It's no need for us to kind of jump on the phone and discuss it.
Okay, that's good. So, like I mentioned before, everyone, Miss Kandia Johnson is international. So you have to talk about like what happened in Kenya, like what's going on there. I know you mentioned you're working
Yeah,
with some
so it's
people.
awesome. So, actually, this was the second year that I went to speak in Kenya. And so last year, the African Women in Technology, the founder is Ani Akab. She's awesome. So I worked as to support the communication efforts for the African Women in Technology. And then I also spoke on how to increase your exposure, how to increase your visibility within the tech industry. And so last year I was there. This year I went with the same topic. And this year I actually presented the masterclass. One of the things that I'm a stickler for, and that I've realized from doing conferences and events, for me, it's not what happens during the conference that matters. It's what happens afterward. You can go to a conference, an event, and get the best information in the world. But if you don't plug that information, if you don't actually take action, then to me that conference meant nothing. Right. And so one of the things when we did the African Women in Technology Conference last year, I did a Life After campaign, and we reached out, we did a survey to see how the women were using the information that we provided with them through the sessions at the conference. And a lot of them, they started businesses, they began some sort of initiative in their communities. They did some phenomenal things, right? And I realized then that that specific community needed more support. Like we could get more women to do more of those things if they had a network, if they had the access to basically turn their vision into reality with more classes after the conference. And so I pitched the conference there and people signed up. And that's really how I got started with the online master classes. A lot of those people, as many people know, women in tech, people of color of tech are severely underrepresented in that industry. Part of the problem is the visibility problem. So that's when I come into play and I get to help people get the spotlight that they deserve.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I have to ask, like, what's been your most proudest moment that you can think of thus far?
For the masterclass?
In general, it could be the
God.
masterclass. It could
So
be.
I would say this, something that I always say is I didn't know what success felt like until I was able to create opportunities for another woman. So that could be something simple. Like if I made a connection, a lot of the times, I meet women in business and I ask them like, what projects are you working on? What do you need help with? And if I know someone who can help them, or if I know someone who's probably having a conference or something like that, I connect people. I connect people a lot. So, those are little proud moments for me. I've learned, when you working for someone, your proud moments is like when you get a raise, right? But sometimes as an entrepreneur, that don't happen overnight. So you have to start figuring out what other measures of success can be for you. And so knowing that, a great deal of what I'm doing right now is creating opportunities for other people to create opportunities for themselves, it's very, very fulfilling, right? It's just like the greatest feeling ever when a client comes to me and they have an aha moment. So one of my participants now in the masterclass, she's pitching her business right now. She has a eco-friendly line of bags for retail
Wow.
stores in Kenya. And so she's like packaged and she's ready and she's good to go. And we were on the phone yesterday and she was like so excited at just having the opportunity. She reached out to a couple of people. People were interested. She actually ran out of the bags. That's another thing. So I was like, this is a good problem to have. It's a bad problem, but a good problem.
Yes.
But that was a proud moment just for me. And I have to say, even I felt like at this point in my life, it was a proud moment for me to understand that I really created an opportunity for myself. So yes, I love creating opportunities for other women, but now I've created this opportunity for myself where I can be home a lot more versus living my life out of a hotel room like I was 5 years ago.
Right. Definitely. And I don't mean to bring it down, but like, what has been, your biggest failure or your most memorable failure?
There's been so many, y'all. Let me just pick it out the hat. No, I just want people to get really, really familiar with this. Oh, so I have a really good, I don't know if this is considered a failure, but it was a huge mistake. So when I first started doing the workshops, right, I was working with corporate clients. And so a lot of the times what works with corporate, for me, I charge per person, right? So a lot of the times you don't really they can tell you like how many people are going to be at your workshop, but usually the check doesn't come till afterward. Okay. Some of them will pay you up front because you have materials and stuff to print. But a couple of times last year, I got burned because people would cancel on me at the last minute. And for me, that's major because number one, you're depending on that money. And number two, you just put in a lot of work, whether you are practicing and preparing for your presentation or you got printed materials or what have you. And so that happened to me one time. And it was one time that was really bad. Like it was literally the night before. I had already got things printed, like everything.
Wow.
Right. So there were 2 lessons learned there. Number one, to include it in the contract. Like if you cancel 24 hours before, you have to pay 50% up front. Or, pay me up front, which is kind of difficult again, because of how the setup is. So that was a powerful lesson, for me to get my contract straight. And then also to even work it out sometimes when we're negotiating in the beginning in terms of, sometimes I have of course I have a set price. But I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, so I've come up with a nonprofit price, but sometimes it's even negotiating the print, right? If they can take the printing cost, which is huge for me as an independent, then I let them take the printing cost and it brings the cost down. So things like that I've had to learn on the fly. It was a tough, costly mistake. And it's kind of like one of those things like, why wouldn't you put in a cancellation clause, Kandia? Right? Like, why wouldn't you do that in the beginning? So it's one of those things that I was pissed about it for about 2 weeks, of course. But everything is a lessons learned.
Right. Okay, definitely. Well, I have some, just before we get, I have some power 5 questions for you. Get ready. So one would be, what advice would you give your 23-year-old self?
Stop caring what people think.
Good one. Good one. And what's your guilty pleasure song?
Cardi B. Bodak Yellow, honey, been on repeat. I actually listened to that song before I have to give a presentation. Before I do a workshop, y'all, this is what I listen to. Yes, I prepare, right? Yes, I practice in the mirror. I do all of those things. The very last thing that I do now is turn on Bodak Yellow. That's what I do.
That's a good choice. That is a good choice. Okay, we can get with that. We can get with Bodak Yellow. She's been doing her thing, so Cardi. Yeah. What about a recommended read?
Oh God, there are so many. Okay. Right now, every morning, I read Destiny by T.D. Jakes. So I would say that. I do love, there's a couple of books. Oh, sorry for going on. But every morning I read T.D. Jakes' Destiny. That's my book at the moment. I love How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's good for networking and building authentic relationships. It's a crazy old book, y'all, but it has some really good tips. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. She also has You Are a Badass at Making Money, which is a good one. I also love The Power of Broke by Damon John. I read that. That's really, because it's all about stories about how people really flipped, an opportunity into something when they had nothing. So I highly recommend that read. You asked for one book and I'm giving you like 5 books. So those were a couple of my favorite reads from this year. A lot of them, like the TD Jakes book and Jen Sincero, I pick up every now and then. It's kind of like one of those things that you pick up over and over and over again.
And here I am trying to save on my budget, but I'm narrowing it down to everything.
I tell people, try to have try to get in the habit of reading, at least 1 to 2 books a quarter. Right. Think of it. Mm-hmm. I think of my entire life in quarters. So this is last quarter. So I have 2 books that I'm trying to read last quarter.
Okay, that's a good one. And what's the last item you splurged on?
Dinner at Maggiano's. Yes. I landed a workshop at the Women's Business Center in Virginia, and I treated myself to a lemon drop cocktail and eggplant parmesan. I don't go out a lot, to eat unless it's a meeting or something like that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. So that was really the last thing that I treated myself on.
And if you could just point on how important it is for us to celebrate those small wins as entrepreneurs.
God. That's so I have to be very transparent and say that, the last couple of months, I haven't done a good job at self-care. I value self-care, but I haven't done a really good job at that. And so I'm getting back into that habit. And I always tell people, even find your happy place to celebrate that small win, even if it's something as simple. I mean, I bought a Facebook ad today. That's a small win. Even something like that, right? Get in the habit of celebrating the steps that you took on your journey. And for me, I look at it like this. When I'm scheduling, a lot of people put a date down for their goal. I just schedule the process, not the result. I schedule the different steps. I literally have steps in my Google Calendar, of things that I need to do to reach a certain point. And so even, buying a Facebook ad for my next course means, the course is coming soon. I'm launching it, right? So that's something. So celebrate, find your happy. For me, I spend a lot of time, I live in New Jersey, but I spend a lot of time in Virginia Beach, at my mom's house. And so I will go to the beach. That's my happy place. And just, celebrate, whether it's with an ice cream cone or whatever. I don't know. I'll celebrate, or meeting with my girlfriends and we'll go to happy hour. Find one thing to celebrate, even if it's kickboxing, find something to celebrate and take care of yourself. That's so really important. I want to also stress that people don't talk about the ugly side of entrepreneurship. Depression is real. Self-sabotage is real. And you have to, because a lot of the times you talk yourself out of things before you even take the first step. You already talked yourself out of it a minute later. Right. And next thing you know, you're back thinking you're not good enough. And that comes with when you don't really learn how to celebrate the small things. Baby steps count too. Celebrate those baby steps that you're taking, at least once a week, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes a week. Because I can't say it, I'll say it again. Depression is real. Self-sabotage is real. If you don't check yourself on it, the baby steps to me count more than the major result. They count way more than that because you're using courage to put yourself out there and to keep grinding and to keep, when you can't see the whole staircase, but you're still going, that needs to be celebrated. A lot of people talk themselves out of that whole process before they even get there. So sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but I just want to make sure that people understand, a lot of the things people don't talk about, the self-sabotage and the depression from not taking care of yourself and not celebrating your small wins is really, really real. So do a good job at finding your happy and taking care of yourself.
Can we just have like a Kandiisms book?
I'm
The
gonna
small
work on
guys.
that. I'm gonna work on that.
Even if it's like a little
I'm gonna work
printable
on that. And you know
workbook.
something else that I do, and I'm gonna encourage you to do it. Is find like your affirmations, your favorite quotes, and I schedule them in my phone. And so, you know, people sometimes look like, oh, you have a meeting. No, I don't. That's just something to remind me that I'm awesome. Like that's just something to remind me that I'm a badass. I don't know. Right. Because look, you have to have a network. That's important. But a lot of the time you're grinding, you're doing your entrepreneurial thing on your own. You have to learn how to celebrate yourself. You have to learn to remind yourself that you're amazing. You already know that. You have to already learn how to put yourself in a place where you want to be and convince yourself that you're already there and convince yourself that you have everything you need to get started on your journey. That needs to come from you, right? A lot of the times we look for other people to give us those things. And yes, that's cool. But as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's just you and the grind. That's it. So you have to learn how to not only celebrate yourself, but remind yourself at points during the day that, oh, look, you know, I'm all right. You know what? I'm a badass today. Like that, you got to remind your own self that. So yes, I'm going to work on that book though. That sounds like a good idea.
Please make sure you start Black to Business first. Okay. We would like to know. Yes. And what social media platforms are you most excited about? Like podcasts, live videos?
I would say
or, you know what?
Podcasting and live videos. I've done some live videos. I definitely need to do more. People are always like, you need to do more live videos. And I do. I'm most excited really about those things. One, because podcasting is on the go. And I am, you know, I like storytelling. I like hearing about people's journey, and podcasting is a great way to do that. So definitely I'm most excited about those two things. I'm a fan of, like, I'm a stalker of Instagram. That's probably my favorite platform. So I'm excited too that Instagram now has it's been around for some time now, but you know, like Instagram Live, that has you know, the storytelling, that sort of thing involved. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about those platforms.
Definitely. I am too. Well, Kandia, it has been a pleasure. So you have to tell everyone, how can they, you know, get in contact with you, stay up to date, and also support what you're doing.
So they can access my website, KandiaJohnson.com, KANDIA Johnson.com. I'm Kandia Johnson on Facebook, Twitter as well. Instagram, I'm Candy J though. So that's KANDIJ on Instagram. Definitely, please subscribe to my mailing list, and you'll definitely be the first to know about the different webinars and the classes that are coming up. I'm definitely working on a major project that's going to be released January 2018. So definitely trying to drum up interest around that. It's a big global project that I'm working on. And so I would really, really appreciate for people to sign up so I can keep posted when it launches.
Yes. Definitely. And I'll just drop a few of the Kandiisms that could possibly go into the book. It's relationships will take you places money can't. Launch it broke, fix it live.
Yes, I snagged that from somewhere, but I love it. But go ahead.
Success can be found in your daily routine, and the baby steps count too. And the last bar is failure is feedback for the come up. That's the fave.
I love it.
Yes. You gave us so much. Any last parting advice to our audience who are in their journey
to know that it is your journey, right? To a lot of, I could give you the best tips in the world, but it all starts with your mindset. Entrepreneurship is a mindset, a huge mindset shift. Definitely work on your confidence, work on your mindset, try to connect with as many people who are, you know, kind of in that same journey as you, so you can keep each other motivated, but also to add value to those relationships, because I do feel like it can definitely take a person's business to the next level when they focus on the relationship building as well.
Definitely. All great gems. Well, there you have it, folks. And of course, you can follow Black to Business everything at blacktobusiness.com. And again, thank you, Miss Kandia. And we will be supporting the class
Thank you,
and
thank you,
everything
thank
else.
you.